Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to be featuring the Lenin, the Tier 7 Russian premium battleship. Now, this update has brought a new designation to some of those stronger ships, such as the Mainz, Wichita, and Summers. You will most likely have seen a bunch of them with the CE designation, which stands for Collector's Edition. Any of the ships with the CE designation will basically not return any time with the same performance. For example, this update brought back the Wichita, however, the HE performance is not the same and the ship is more focused around AP. It's definitely not a bad ship, but basically you won't see the previous versions of those ships return to the store for you to obtain. Considering that Lenin was released during the Massachusetts campaign almost 2 years ago, and Lenin still has not actually made a return, I'm thinking the Lenin will definitely receive a CE designation and a slightly altered version of the Lenin will be released later. Something else that was also released in this update is a new mechanic called the minor penetration. And reading from the patch notes, it says that when striking a hit within a location has no HP remaining, which in this case is due to saturation damage, the target will take 10% of the shell or bomb's damage to their ship HP. Minor penetration cannot occur from secondary battery hits. Now, the description that they gave of the skill is quite basic, and in terms of how armor penetration and saturation works, it's not really capturing the full picture. So I did go and ask Prince Blip for some clarification on the nitty-gritty details of how the skill works. But before I get into that, I thought I would cover how AP penetrations deal damage and how saturation works. So basically, a ship's AP shell, you have its alpha. It deals 1/6 of that alpha damage for a penetration. It deals that 1/6 damage to the ship's part. In this case, let's just say it pens the bow. It would do 1/6 the damage. Now there is also another HP pool that is basically the allocated overall HP pool for the ship, and it also deals 1/6 damage to that HP pool as well, which is why simplifying it is 1/3 of that alpha damage. Now as the battle goes on, obviously your ship will take damage and then parts will become saturated. If the bow becomes fully saturated, meaning the bow won't take damage, you will only be dealing damage to that overall HP pool, and then at some point that overall HP pool will also be depleted, and then the only HP remaining would be in other parts of the ship like the superstructure, casemate, or the stern. And if you were to keep shooting the bow that's already destroyed and the overall HP pool that's allocated to the ship is also destroyed, you would then be dealing 0 damage for penetrations, and the only way to deal damage would have been through an over-penetration to that part of the ship. Now this minor penetration is a way to help against will to rebuild, because will to rebuild restores your HP, but it doesn't actually restore the saturation damage that is caused. So there has been instances of ships basically not taking any damage because the overall HP is not being replenished at any part of the ship. So a ship could have been fully saturated in its entirety and really not taking any damage unless it was through fires, floods, a torpedo since it counts as a citadel hit, or citadels from a main battery's gun. So basically this minor penetration damage is going to let you do 10% of the shell's damage to the part of the ship, and in this case, since you would say have the bow and then the overall HP pool, you would then be doing 1/5 of the shell damage, which still isn't as much as a full penetration, which I would have preferred that the will to rebuild skill, when activated, would just simply restore saturation damage, because that is really a skill to counter fire damage instead of all damage. But this is a good adjustment. So now these ships will have some damage being dealt to them, even though they are fully saturated. I do kind of laugh a bit that Wargaming has decided to create an entirely new mechanic instead of simply addressing the skill that is causing the issue. I think battleship commanders, if they just simply were given one more heal through a legendary skill, like Tetsudo, for example, on the Italian dispersion commander, then I think a lot of this issues of HE spam wouldn't really be a problem, because if they are still complaining about HE spam, it's because they're sitting bowing and reversing, which is just them being an easy target. Anyway, moving on, I'll just read the responses from Prince Blip that I got about this new penetration. Minor penetration is allocated to the overall HP pool and can be healed, similar to fire damage or flooding. Also, minor penetration can be achieved by HE, AP, SAP, torpedoes, and bombs, AP, skip, and HE bombs. I'm not sure if it's just a placebo effect of how this skill works, but I do feel like I've done much better against ships that are in Worlds Rebuild. I could be wrong, and at the same time, maybe this new mechanic works. Anyway, going to the game, it's pretty much almost over, and Odin comes around the corner. Typically, I would not be pushing towards a German battleship that has torpedoes, mainly because, well, it has torpedoes. But I do decide to try and push towards the Odin because I am in the Lenin, and when you're at point blank range, your guns are pretty much on point. And for those of you that have been around my channel from quite a while ago, you'll know that I had a short that showcased how you could citadel German battleships through the cheek of the bow, because the turtleback does not protect the front part of the citadel. So me charging at this Odin was basically content grab and trying to actually showcase this in a game. We see the Odin's torpedoes from his right side pass us, and ideally that is the side that we would want to try and take the shot at his cheek, simply because then he wouldn't have torpedoes to dev strike us. But he does start turning, and we are stuck on the side that has torpedoes. I wait for him to turn and give the proper angle. I take a shot under his front turret, and I'm able to triple citadel him and dev strike him at point blank range. And there is the weakness of German turtleback. Turtleback does protect you from citadels at close range, but it does not make you immune in the case of this Odin. Now, this is something I do recommend you try to do if you find yourself in a situation where you're obviously caught and are basically forced to do one of these cheek shots. Obviously, if you have the opportunity to turn away and create distance with a German battleship, you probably should, but there are those instances where you simply cannot, and if dev striking a German battleship is the only way you survive, then that is how you do it. If we ever do get training rooms soon, I would definitely make a video in more detail of how you can do this and on what ships. But as a general rule of thumb, the tier 7s and up, it is very easy to do. The Gneisenau and Scharnhorst, then going down, it is much more difficult. But yeah, I'd say this was a pretty rare game, dev striking a German battleship at point blank range, and also getting 3000 base XP on the dot. You don't really see these rounded numbers very often. 134,000, not the most, but still, it was a pretty decent game to go over the new mechanic and show this very rare event of dev striking a German battleship. I think this is only the second time that I was able to do it. The first time I was in a Jean Bart against a Bismarck quite a while ago, and it's not from a lack of trying to do it, it's just the amount of times that it actually does happen. You do get one or two citadels, but usually it's not enough to dev strike him. And if you paid attention, that Odin really was just over half of his HP, so getting a dev strike wasn't as difficult if it was a full HP ship. But that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Do leave a like and subscribe for more. Leave a comment down below for any ships you want to see in the future. But until next time, aloha.